Hello and welcome back. I hope you got to enjoy the video of my trip, my recent trip from the Cove. I think it's called the Cove to the Lake Trail in La Quinta, California. I've been wanting to do this trail for a pretty good while. I never could figure out where it was, and finally I found it and took a trip on Wednesday. And as I was going on the trail, it was early in the morning, about 6 o'clock in the morning, as I was traveling towards Lake Cahuilla. Strange name, but Lake Kawia. It's about a 4-mile trek from the trailhead there at the Cove in La Quinta to the lake. Had a real good time, no problems. It's a pretty flat area, as you can tell from the video. But only about maybe less than 1,000 feet in elevation, so it was not a very strenuous hike. But I started early in the morning because I knew it was going to get hot in the afternoon or hot later on, and so I started about 6 o'clock in the morning. Got to the lake at about 12 o'clock. It took me a little bit of time to get there because I was doing a lot of filming and just taking my time basically, and so got to the lake and I started coming back from the lake towards the trailhead to get back to my car, and I started experiencing not a lot of chest pain. I guess the best way you describe it is I had some discomfort in my chest. But the biggest thing was I started experiencing just a tiredness. I mean, I was just literally beat, and I'd go about 100 yards, and then I would just have to stop and then rest. And to be honest with you, I thought it was heat exhaustion. Now, it wasn't real hot. It was about 90 degrees, but I had suffered heat exhaustion before, and so I knew that I couldn't handle that much heat very long, and so I just assumed that it was heat exhaustion. And so I found a bush, and I crawled underneath the bush to get out of the sun, again thinking that that was the problem, and kind of laid down and rested for a little while until I got my strength back. And so I got back up and then proceeded to head towards the trailhead again. And again, I only got about 100 yards, and again, just ran out of gas and sweating profusely, but I just assumed that it was just the heat. And so I stopped again, went underneath a bush and rested a little bit until I got to the part of the trail that went up in elevation. Again, like I said, not very far, about 1,000, less than 1,000 feet of elevation. And so I got a little bit up the trail in elevation and just completely could not make it. I had to stop, and I was breathing real hard. And so I went back down the hill, went underneath the bush, again thinking it was heat related. And I called my wife and I said, honey, man, I'm having some problems out here. I said, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it back to the car. And she suggested, she said, well, why don't you call 911? I said, no. I said, I'll make it. I'll be okay. And so I'm going to just rest here for a little bit, and then I'm going to head back. And so after I hung up with her, I got out from underneath the bush again, and I started going up this same hill. And at the same spot, I just literally ran out of gas. I just stopped, and I was breathing heavily. And it was the first time, I thought to myself, I can't make it. I can't make it back to my car. And so I went back down the hill, went underneath the same bush, and I hate it too, like anything. But I called 911. The dispatcher answered the phone and asked me what my problem was, and I told her the situation. And I said, I think I'm suffering from heat exhaustion. She said, well, we'll send somebody to you. And so shortly after that, I heard a helicopter circling above me. Now bear in mind, I was underneath a bush and keeping out of the heat. And by this time, I was just exhausted. And so the dispatcher called me back and said, they can't find you. She said, do you hear the helicopter above you? I said, yeah. I said, I hear the helicopter. She said, well, they can't find you. Where are you? I said, well, I'm underneath the bush getting out of the sun. And she said, well, if you could crawl out from underneath the bush and wave at them, let them know where you are, then they'll come down and pick you up. And so I did. I crawled underneath the bush and waved at them, and they saw me, and so they landed in a flat spot, and it was 3 CHP officers inside of the helicopter. And so one of them came out, got me and put me in the helicopter, strapped me in, and then brought me back to the lake, which was about 3 miles from where I was. And I only had about 1.5 miles to go to get to my car. And I thought, oh man, this is ridiculous. But I couldn't make it. I literally could not make it. And so I looked down and I saw an ambulance waiting for me. And so when I got down, or when they landed, they put me in the back of the ambulance, and I told them, the situation. Of course, they asked me immediately, "Are you having any chest pains?" And I told them, I said, "No." I said, "I'm not having any chest pains or anything." They said, "Well, let's take your vitals." They took my vitals. Everything was fine. My blood pressure was fine. My heart rate was fine. Everything was fine. And so I told him, I said, "Look, I'm just suffering from heat exhaustion." And so the guy asked me, he says, "What do you want to do? You want to go to the hospital, or do you want us to take to your car?" And I said, "Just take me to my car." He said, "Are you going to be able to make it back home?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'll just crank up the AC and then, make it back home, and then I'll rest, the rest of the evening." And so he said, "Okay." And so as they were heading towards the car, he said, "I'm going to do an EKG on you." And so they hooked me up with all these wires and the EKG machine and everything. And he looked at me and went, And so I looked back at him. I went, "What do you mean, He said, "I don't like the way this looks." He said, the vehicle is rocking back and forth now as we're traveling. He said, "So as soon as we get to your car," he said, "I'm going to take this reading again." He said, the vibration and the movement of the vehicle and everything may cause a false reading on this." And so as soon as we got to my car, he took it again. He said, "I don't like the way this looks." He said, "I suggested we take you to emergency room." So I told him, I said, "Well, if that's what you think," I said, let's go. And so they took me to the nearest ER, JFK Hospital in Indio. And immediately they started doing tests, taking blood, and then that's when they determined that I had a heart attack. And so it was a good thing that I made it to the ER. It was a good thing that I was well enough that I could call 911 and get a helicopter or search and rescue team to come and pick me up and take me to the hospital. So that's where we're at now, and let me just say that I am not finished. I am not going to hold down the couch for the rest of my life. I'm going to be out back on the trail as soon as possible. I have a meeting with my cardiologist in just a few days, and so I'm going to sit down with him and we're going to go over some options about how to correct this situation so that I can get back on the trail and doing the things that I love to do. And so again, thank you for all of you who have reached out to me so far, and with your prayers, your support, your concern. Thank you so much. You don't know what that means to me. You don't really appreciate your friends like you should until you have a need like I have. And so thank you so much for reaching out to me through the social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Thank you so much for the concern that you have shown towards me and my family. So, as soon as I find out something else, then I will let you know. But until then, I will see you